I thought my headache was just a migraine, until the doctor found a bullet lodged in my brain, thanks to my boyfriend. I thought it was a normal migraine, but it turned out to be something much more sinister. I was laying on my couch in my home with an ice pack on my head. I had a blinding headache, one of the worst headaches I had ever had, and I was unable to do anything else but lay on the couch. I had no idea why I had this terrible headache. The only thing I could think of was 3 weeks earlier, I had been in a minor car accident and one of my car windows had broken and some of the glass had cut my face. I didn't think that would be enough to lead to this absolutely horrific headache that had not gone away for 3 weeks. But I was a very tough woman. I had thought about going to the hospital over these past 3 weeks to deal with whatever was causing this headache. But I had told myself that it's gotta be something minor. The cut on my forehead seemed to be healing well. I was laying on the couch all day long, only getting up to eat and go to the bathroom, not going to work, and just sitting in the darkness with this ice pack, just hoping for this headache to go away. As I was just laying there, I heard my back door open up. It was my boyfriend Gervonta coming in with groceries. He came inside and he put the groceries away. Then he came into the living room where I was, and he asked how I was doing. I told him that the headache had not gone away yet, and would he mind going into the kitchen and getting me some ibuprofen? And so Gervonta said, "Of course." He got what I needed. He brought it back. I said thank you. I took the ibuprofen, and then I went back to being totally miserable. But just a second later, I and Gervonta heard a knock at the front door. He walked over and casually looked through the blinds to see if he could see who was at the front door. He saw it was my best friend, Leisha. But instead of going to the door and opening it, Gervonta turned to me and said, "Hey, it's Leisha. Do you want me to get the door?" I just grunted and said, "No, please, just ignore her." Even though Leisha and I were very close, I knew that Lisa was very high energy. She had been calling and texting basically nonstop ever since I had begun getting these headaches. I could barely have a conversation without my head hurting even more. My room was on the front of the house as well, and I wanted to see if Leisha was still there. When I opened those blinds, Leisha, who was outside, happened to be looking at my bedroom, and the two of us made eye contact. I just shut the blinds. But now Lisa comes up to the window and she's yelling, "I know you're there, come on, let me in, I want to help you." But I just could not deal with it. So I laid down on my bed and just continued to totally ignore Leisha. I knew that no matter how offended and upset Leisha was for this snub, she would get over it, because we had been friends for nearly 2 decades. A few hours later, when I woke up, Leisha was gone as well as Gervonta. He didn't stick around for very long. He often would only come over just to check in, and then he'd go off and do his own thing. I sat up, I got out of my bed, and I was only able to walk back out into the living room, where I laid down on the couch and just went right back to sleep. Even though I had had this headache for 3 weeks and it had not gotten any better, I was convinced that taking enough ibuprofen and relaxing long enough would cause it to go away. But over the next couple of days, this headache, which was already a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale to me, somehow became like a 20 out of 10. It got so bad that I couldn't even open my eyes. It was horrific. This headache got so bad that my relationship with Gervonta started to sour. Gervonta didn't believe that I was actually in the amount of pain that I was in. He began acting like I was just being lazy. This really upset me because that wasn't true at all. I was just in blinding pain and couldn't do anything. Finally, 5 weeks after my headaches had begun, my headache had still not gone away. I was laying on the couch like always with the lights off. When I hear the back door open, it's Gervonta. He comes in and slams the back door. He doesn't even say hello. He storms into the living room and looks down at me with a totally disapproving look. I said, "You know what? We're done." Immediately, Gervonta got mad and he's like, "How dare you? I've been taking care of you for the past 5 weeks, bringing you groceries, this and that." I had no energy to fight with him. So I just let him rant and rave until finally he was done. And I was so relieved when he walked out. A few days later, Leisha was back at my house, knocking on the door. I had texted her to let her know that I had officially ended things with Gervonta, so she came over to talk. She was very excited to see me. And when she knocked, I went up to the door and I opened it up. It was the first time she'd seen me since my headache started. She knew something was definitely wrong. My entire apartment is totally dark. All the windows are covered up, and I am squinting out at Leisha. Leisha says, "Oh, how bad is this headache?" I could barely make a sentence, and I just said, "So bad. It's so bad." Lisa came inside, and I led her through the dark apartment to the kitchen and back. She began asking me questions about my headache, about Gervonta, just kind of about my life. Quickly, Lisa realized that I really wasn't making any sense. I was slurring my speech and could barely look her in the eyes. Finally, Lisa said, "Hey, this can't be a normal headache. This is something serious. You need to go to the hospital." I realized that there was something wrong here. I needed help from a doctor. Leisha helped me out of my apartment and into her car, and made our way to the hospital. When we got there, Leisha brought me into the emergency room and explained to the nurses that I had a terrible migraine. She told them about the minor car accident that I was in and took me back to one of the rooms. They treated me as they would any other patient who had a serious headache. They asked me questions about my headache, how long it had been going on, if I was hydrated and eating properly. They wanted to know what medications I had tried already, and if anything helped at all. I told them about the minor car accident I'd been in weeks ago, but the cuts on my face seemed unimportant to them. Nothing stood out as a cause for such severe pain. They were clearly worried because a headache this bad and long-lasting could signal something serious like a stroke. So they ordered some imaging scans to look inside my head for answers. After all the tests, I returned to a hospital room feeling exhausted but hopeful. Surely now they would see what was wrong and give me something to make this agony end, I thought. I just wanted to feel normal again. But only minutes later, my door burst open with a swarm of panicked doctors and nurses. A man in a suit pushed through. A detective. My heart sank as I braced for worse news, realizing this mystery was more sinister than anyone guessed. He pointed out the bright spot on the image. I couldn't comprehend what he was saying. He explained they had found a bullet lodged in my brain. I stared at him in disbelief, trying to process this impossible fact. Thinking back, flashes of memory returned to me, fighting with Gervonta, him getting his things and angrily slamming into my car. But it didn't make sense. How could this be from such a minor accident? As more details emerged of what really happened that night, I felt overwhelmed with distress. I thought back to the fight I had with Gervonta. I was furious with Gervonta because at this house party, he had been openly flirting with another woman right in front of me. After going to the party, I brought it up to him about how disrespectful that was. Gervonta, instead of being apologetic or trying to defend himself or even lie about it, he just got mad at me and said, "You know what? Fine. I'm breaking up with you." He began going around the house, gathering up all of his things. Truthfully, I was so mad that I didn't really care that he was putting on this show about leaving me. After a few minutes of Gervonta angrily grabbing his stuff from inside the house, he headed outside to my car. He had some more things inside my car and went into the passenger seat. I reflexively got into the driver's seat just to make sure that he didn't take anything inside of it that wasn't his. I'm watching him gather up his things and then he hops out of the car. He didn't say a word to me. Then he walked around the front of my car and got into his, which was parked right in front of mine. He climbed into the driver's seat, shut the door, and then he didn't move. I'm still sitting in my car, looking at Gervonta, hoping that he's just going to leave now. But he wasn't. Feeling so frustrated and mad at him for everything, I turned on my car and drove forward. I bumped intentionally into the back of Gervonta's car. Gervonta was furious. He threw his car in reverse and hit the gas and rammed into the front of my car. He hit my car so hard that it lurched backwards and smashed into the fence behind me. Now, that's all I remembered before everything went black. But what I did not know as I was laying in the hospital bed was that there was actually a whole other series of events that played out. After Gervonta backed into me, he got out of his car, walked up to me, drew a gun, and shot me in the head. That's what happened. This was not glass cut. The mark on my forehead was where the bullet went into my skull. Obviously, this did not kill me. It knocked me unconscious. Gervonta picked me up, put me in his car, and drove me to his mother's house. He told his mother, "Oh, Nicole was drunk and she got into a small accident and she just needs to rest." Gervonta's mom, believing her son, put some Neosporin on my entry wound from the gunshot, put a Band-Aid over it, and looked after me for the night. When I regained consciousness, I had no idea what happened. My memory only existed up until Gervonta rammed into me. When Gervonta realized that I didn't know he shot me, he just went along with it and said, "Oh yeah, you got drunk and we were fighting a little bit and you got into a small accident and I think the glass fell down and cut your head." That's all that happened. And I believed it. The doctors told me that they've never seen anything like this. I should be dead. Because this had gone untreated for 5 weeks, my body healed around the bullet. They said, "Your brain has formed itself around the bullet, and so it will do more damage than good if we try to pull it out." I couldn't believe Gervonta had shot me and left me for dead, lying to me all this time about a cut from glass. If only I had gotten help sooner, things may have been different. At least now I knew the truth, and that monster would pay for what he did. I focused on recovering physically with the bullet remaining embedded, though a full recovery was impossible. Leisha supported me through my emotional and psychological healing from Gervonta's cruelty. While I faced permanent impairment, I took comfort that justice would be served for Gervonta's violence. He has been sentenced to 25 years in prison, and I hope he burns in hell.